Please, please, I'm begging you, sir. I'll do anything. Just please give me 1 more month to find the money.
I laughed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. 1 month? What am I, a charity? You've failed to pay me for the past 3 months, Mr. Wilson. I believe the deal we had was that you'd send payments every week.
Please, sir, I'm begging you, it's not my fault.
Whose fault is it then? The lame horse you bet on which made you lose all your money? I didn't really need the guy's money, but I admit it felt good to have so much power. So much money that people are willing to kneel before me. I'd be lying if I didn't say that squeezing every bit of money from Riley's father didn't give me a whole lot of satisfaction. After all, he was one of the reasons I got rejected by her only a year ago. I heard you told your daughter I wasn't worthy of her. If I remember right, you were the one who told her that my family was poor, and that my dad was just a window cleaner, and that I'd no doubt follow in his footsteps. Didn't you tell her I was too poor to be her girlfriend? Finally, the man's eyes began to widen with sudden realization. After months of borrowing money from me, he finally recognized who I was.
I didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't. I'm sorry. Trace, is that really you? Trace, forgive me. If you want my daughter, you can have her. Take my daughter. She's yours. Just please, take her and we're even.
I laughed again. A long, satisfying, vengeful laugh. I called 2 of the models who were lounging on the couch in the corner. They sat beside me and began to give me a massage on my shoulders. I smiled at the man who once called me worthless. Are you kidding? Why would I want your daughter when I can have any beautiful woman I want? Hank, take him away. Put him to work in the mines until he pays off his debt. Riley's dad tried to run, but before he could even stand, Hank lifted him up with one hand and slung him onto his shoulders as if he weighed nothing. The guy screamed and begged for me to spare his family. But why would I? They owed me. I simply came to collect. Hi there, I'm Trace. And when my crush rejected me, I turned myself into the city's alpha. Do you have a unique title idea? Comment it down below and like the ones you think are interesting. You never know. Your story may be the next one we post. Alright, now back to the story. I met Riley years ago. We were childhood friends. I've lived on the same street as her family ever since my mom left Dad and we had to move to a smaller place. Riley was my first ever friend at the new school. She introduced me to a lot of cool people. And even though I was a quiet, geeky kid, thanks to her, I had cool friends. The problem was that those friends were only my friends as long as Riley was there. As soon as she turned her back, those same friends would make fun of me, call me names, mock me for my acne and how I had fat cheeks. They called me babyface, and they didn't mean it in a nice way. But, you know what? I didn't mind it in the slightest. If it meant I got to hang out with Riley, I was happy. The guys she hung out with were rough. They ridiculed me every chance they got. They would steal my stuff and pick on me during gym class. I ran out of excuses to my dad for how I kept losing my shoes. But I endured all of that because I thought Riley wasn't like them. That was until I plucked up the courage to finally tell her what I'd been meaning to say all those years. One afternoon, on the very first Valentine's Day that I managed to scrounge up some money, I bought a huge bouquet of flowers, wore my dad's suit, and fixed up my hair. I went into school fully intending to go home as Riley's boyfriend. I should have taken the stairs and the pointing as a clue. Everyone was laughing at me, and I didn't know why. I texted Riley to meet me behind the gym after class. I fully expected us to be alone there, but the moment I got there, there was already a bunch of people waiting. Somehow, the news of my invitation got shared, and the whole class was there. I was so nervous, but I thought, what the heck? I was gonna do it now, or I never will. The crowd parted, and I knew it was her. Only, she was holding someone else's hand. Oh, I should have known. Riley and Alvin were always together, and she laughed at everything he said, even when he was insulting me. Alvin looked like he wanted to beat me up, and the only reason he hadn't yet was because Riley was holding him back. I tried to speak, but I couldn't. Trace, I think I know why you invited me here. I'm sorry to say, but... No, please, hear me out! The fear of hearing the words I never wanted to hear finally made me speak. Please, Riley, let me just give you the reasons why. Why... I'm... Okay. Well... First of all, we've known each other since we were kids. Your family loves me. Your dad says I'm the son he never had. I may not be as tall, or I may not look like Alvin, but I love you. I love you, and that means I'll work twice as hard to make you happy. I could hear the cringe echo throughout the whole school grounds. Every single person who was watching probably felt sorry for me at that very moment. But not sorry enough to stop watching or waiting to see the train wreck that was about to follow. Riley took my hand and took the bouquet. She smiled at me for a second, and I felt hope. But then she shoved the flowers into Alvin's hand. Can you throw that thing away? Like, right now? Then she turned back to me. I wanted to meet you here to ask you nicely, but now you've really pissed me off, and you've humiliated me in front of all these people. Seriously? Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is to pretend to be your friend every day? Pretend? Shut your mouth! I'm not finished. I try to be nice. I smile even though you make me puke. And now, in front of the whole school, you embarrass me by confessing your gross feelings? I only made friends with you because my parents said it would be polite. Because they pitied you. We all pity you because you're poor. But that was a mistake, because now you always hang around me like some sort of leech. I can't seem to get rid of you. I even asked my friends to amp up the bullying so you'd finally take the hint. But wow, you're persistent. So now, you show up in that ugly suit from the 90s and you think I'd ever want to go out with you? You goody two-shoes nerd who can't even afford to get nice flowers? Please! My dad likes you? You must be delusional. He's always talking about how creepy you are. Sorry, not sorry. I don't date nerds like you. I only go for bad guys like Alvin. He knows what he wants and he gets it. Don't you ever come near me again, or I'll report you to the principal for harassment. I never spoke to Riley again. That evening, her dad came barreling through our door demanding to speak to my dad. We were having dinner. Riley's dad broke our table and shouted at my dad for a good 30 minutes. He told him that Riley was disgusted by me, and she was very offended. He called me a creep and told my dad that if I ever came near his daughter again, that he'd call the cops. I never wanted to cause my dad any trouble, but because of me, he lost Riley's dad as a client. But it was because of what Riley did that I turned my life around. I transferred schools. I worked hard. I worked out a lot. I eventually dropped out because a friend had suggested a lucrative business for me to get into. And with his help, I became a driver for a VIP. Let's just say the guy owns a lot of the businesses in town. How he got to that level, I never asked. But I learned a lot from him, because I showed him I was trustworthy. I was promoted to be his head of security, And before long, I was earning way more than I ever knew I could. I saved all my money, and when it was time to leave my employer, he introduced me to a lot of important people in my hometown. I became a loan shark when I went back home, and everyone wanted to borrow money from me thanks to the sinking economy, especially since none of the banks were giving out loans. By the end of the year, I had confiscated half of the businesses in town when they couldn't pay back my high interests, and that was how I built my empire. Guess I wasn't goody two-shoes anymore. It was around that time that Riley's dad approached one of my employees for a loan. He needed $50,000 to keep his business afloat. I immediately approved his loan. I gave him $100,000. My employee said he was over the moon. Little did he know, I gave him double what he wanted to make sure he could never afford the payments. Of course I took his business. I took his house, and I threw his family out into the streets. Riley begged me to let them stay. "Please, Trace, have mercy. We're friends, aren't we? I'll do anything you want. Why don't we go out to a restaurant? We'll talk about things, catch up." Long ago, she called me a creep, a nerd. Long ago, she wanted nothing to do with me. But now she was throwing herself at my feet. Now that I was rich and I ruled the whole city, everybody owed me money. Even the mayor. Riley was just another casualty of her father's greed. I laughed at her. "Friends? I'm sorry, Riley. I can't be your friend if you're only doing it out of pity. Nothing personal. Just business." I brought a demolition crew that day, just so Riley could watch me destroy her house. I smiled at her as she watched her childhood home go up in dust.
My name's Olivia. Last time you saw me, my pretend boyfriend Chris was running from me. This time, I'm gonna tell him who I am. Shout out to Sunrias777! Your idea inspired today's story. Remember to post your unique title ideas in the comments below. Give a like to the ones you want to see animated. If your suggestion does well, we'll include you in our special Discord server. Alright, back to the story. Let go of me! Let go! Help! Please! Help! Chris wouldn't stop screaming as he tried to wriggle free from my bodyguard's grasp. But it was to no avail. Louisa was twice his size and had biceps that could crush a rock. Who are you? Why do you have a video of me? I took the video, Chris. Do you really not remember? All I got back was a confused look from him. But to me, Chris was irreplaceable. To me, he was unforgettable. To me, he was the one. We met years ago. I was still in middle school, and Chris was a year above me. He was popular, handsome, and every girl in school wanted to be his girlfriend. I did too. But who would look at me? I was the nerd everyone laughed at. It was because I started wearing my own designs to school. I'd always loved making clothes, ever since I was little when my grandpa taught me how to sew. So one day, I decided I was going to be a designer, and I was going to make my own clothes. The rest of the school didn't agree though. They made fun of me, laughed at my designs. They flaunted their designer dresses and mocked my homemade ones. When I wasn't looking, they'd cut holes in my clothes. At lunch, they'd pretend to bump into me so their drinks would splash on me and stain my dresses. Chris was one of the people who made fun of me. I thought he'd at least understand what it was like to be poor in that school full of rich kids. Instead, Chris made sure to let everyone know I was the one they should make fun of. Chris bullied me daily, and I welcomed it. Anything to be closer to him. It's pathetic, I know. But eventually, Chris grew tired of being the bad guy. When we actually got to hang out, I realized he was just a normal guy. He wasn't some sort of monster. He was just trying his best to get through school like everyone. And he was sweet and deep. We would spend hours and hours just talking about life and art and munching on Pop-Tarts. We built a treehouse in the middle of the woods together, and we would spend a lot of our time there. One weekend, while we were playing by the beach, I got lost. I was so scared by the sudden storm, I ran into a cave. That was where Chris found me. He comforted me and kept me warm. That was our first kiss. But then, out of nowhere, he was gone. It broke my heart. I went to school that Monday fully thinking I was the luckiest girl in the world to have Chris as my boyfriend. But the moment I walked into class, I saw him with Angie, all cuddled up like lovebirds by the window. Perfect, beautiful Princess Angie. I tried to ask why. I tried to talk to Chris, but he just shooed me away as if we didn't know each other. Go away, nerd! Jeez, get a life! The entire class laughed at me. I stopped going to school. That summer, my mom won the lottery. My family and I moved to Paris soon after, and I began a different life. A more determined life. Because of Chris, because of my classmates, I was determined to make it, to prove them wrong. I changed. I worked day and night on my collection. I sewed skirts and jackets and dresses until my hands and eyes hurt. Back home, kids laughed at my homemade clothes. In Paris, they admired my sense of style. And one day, an important fashion editor noticed my work. And using her influence and with a little help from my mom's lottery winnings, I started my own fashion line. I was on every magazine cover. My designs were being worn by top models from all around the globe. I'd finally reached my dream. But something was missing, and I was no longer the same Olivia. I was irritable, mean. I would snap at people. I used to greet people with a smile. Now, I only smile when someone does something that annoys me. It's because I know that I would get to ruin their life in the next 5 seconds. I just looked in the mirror one day and didn't recognize myself. In my quest to find success, I'd let go of who I was. But that all changed when I saw him again, here, in Paris of all places, the cradle of romance. He was a waiter at the launch party of my new collection. I tried all night to get him to notice me. I tried to smile and stare at him, but I think I was concentrating too much. When he finally looked at me and he walked towards me, I got so nervous I could only manage a frown. And when Chris smiled at me, I lost all control and what came out of my mouth was a shout. Whenever I got nervous, I resorted to anger, and that was how I talked to Chris all night. One time, I even shouted at him to kiss me. I swear I was only thinking it. Turned out, the words really escaped my lips. One of the more annoying parts was that Antoine was there. Yeah, Antoine was the guy my parents wanted me to marry. Ever since they got rich, all my parents could think about was having me marry some rich kid that came from a proper family. I don't even know what that means or why it mattered. All I knew was that I never wanted any part of it. To dodge Antoine, I had to drag Chris all over the mansion. But when the night faded, he still didn't remember me. Cut to today, when he caught me reminiscing over our past, and he was still confused. Until he told me that he had been in an accident which caused him to lose most of his memories. And then, I knew it. It was my chance. We could start over again. Maybe if I kiss you, you'll remember? I don't think amnesia works that way. I didn't let him finish. I just kissed him. I couldn't help myself. See, it doesn't work. Life isn't a fairy... Chris described it to me as if he was seeing a movie in his head. One by one, his memories flooded in. Flashes of the past bringing back the things he forgot. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. Olivia, is it really you? I'm sorry. The things I did. Your parents, that day with Angie. Your parents told me if I kept seeing you, they'd ruin my life. They'd take you away. They said I was just some jock who had no future. And they were right. Look at me. I'm just a waiter. My parents? Suddenly, I understood. He did it to protect me. All my life, my parents had been trying to control me. All they wanted was for me to marry into money. But enough was enough. I introduced Chris to them, and they couldn't understand why I'd want to marry my own servant. Ugh, why would you marry some poor nobody? We've already found the best match for you. Antoine is a great boy, and he comes from money. What's a stupid servant gonna do to feed you? He's not just a nobody. This is Chris, the boy you blackmailed into breaking my heart. That was when all hell broke loose. Dad threatened to disown me. Mom tried to pull me away from Chris, but I didn't care anymore. Disown me all you want. I can make my own money. I took Chris away from there. We packed our bags and flew home, back to where we first met. My parents disowned me, and so with what I saved from my own business, I launched my line again. It was a hit. It was then that I got to see my old classmates again. They were all so stoked to see the legendary Chris again. They threw a party. And when we went together, hand in hand, people stared. They had no idea who I was. They complimented me on my dress and how beautiful I was. When they heard I worked in fashion in Paris, they asked if I knew the brand they were all wearing. I laughed. Don't you guys recognize me? It's Olivia, the girl you all laughed at for wearing homemade clothes. And now you're all wearing my brand. Ironic, isn't it? Their jaws fell. They used to mock me. They used to tell me I wasn't worth anyone's attention. Least of all, Chris's love. But now who's laughing? I have Chris by my side, a successful business on the rise, and the respect of people in my industry. The clothes they laughed at before is now a billion-dollar fashion empire. And as Chris and I walked away from that party, all I could hear were my old classmates begging for freebies and tickets to my fashion shows. I gave them all tickets, of course, but when they got there, the hall was empty. I must have written the date wrong on the invitations. Oops.
Hey there, it's me, Harlan. And last time you saw my ex, Amanda, throw me overboard my own boat, and I ended up getting picked up by a group of strong Amazonian warrior women. I was seconds away from being married to their queen. Today, I'll tell you all about how I became everyone's husband on the island. But first things first, shout out and credit to Pamela Rie. Today's story is inspired by your title idea. Remember to post your new title ideas in the comments below. It needs to be an original story, something we haven't done already. Give a like to the ones you would like to see animated. For the most active members to create very popular titles, we will contact you to join a secret server on Discord to offer you behind-the-scenes access. For now, let's jump straight into today's thrilling story. Anasini, the queen, was even more beautiful than the last time I saw her, and that was mere hours ago. Her hair was dark and long, and adorned with all sorts of flowers and gold ornaments. Her hands and arms were dotted with beautiful tattoos, and her dress flowed in the ocean breeze like it was made of sea foam. When she looked straight into my eyes, I kinda lost track of reality for a second. She stepped on my foot to bring me back. Ow! Why? She smiled at me and looked down. Her hand was waiting for me to take it, and the people who were watching waited with bated breath. I was literally making a beautiful queen wait for me to take her hand. You can't blame me for finding the whole thing so insane. Did I die and go to heaven? We knelt on pillows made of silk in front of the large woman who seemed to be the village elder, and the whole village surrounded us. Several hot girls who, well, turned out to be the village priestesses, bound the queen's hands to mine with a shawl. They anointed us with some fragrant oil, and that was it. We were married. The villagers threw rice into the air and everyone cheered. I was still kinda in shock, so I didn't know what to do, until I saw Anasini's lips coming closer and closer to mine. I closed my eyes and waited for it to happen. Slap! I felt the sting of my new wife's palm on my cheek, and then the crowd cheered. I opened my eyes and she kissed me. That was the first of their unusual customs that I learned. But Anna never stopped me again after that one ceremonial time. When we kissed, we just kissed. Marrying Anna made me king of that lost, undiscovered society of warrior women. And being king had tons of perks. Firstly, as the king, I was the only guy allowed to exist in that island, and they're very serious about this. They've sunk many ships that have come too close to their islands. That was mostly how they got new kings to replace the